Gaurav, this kind of ruckus we saw in the parliament, Rahul Gandhi trying to, quote, as Rajdeep said, trying to corner Narendra Modi over this unpublished work, this government hitting back, the question of patriotism, the question of what just General Naravane said. How are you seeing this entire development over the last 45 minutes?
Look, this is extremely interesting what General Naravane has written, in bits and pieces. There have been conversations around it, but one, that book is unpublished. Two, it's still waiting clearance from the relevant department. Usually there's a government rule. Any senior officer who writes a book, whether it's a former chief, a former general, a former head of intelligence agencies, you've had former raw chiefs who've written books, you've had former top diplomats who've written books, but all of those books for certain aspects go through clearance from relevant departments, because in a lot of things they've been, like in the case of General Naravane, he was at the helm of affairs when the situation erupted at Galwan. He has a certain take on it, government has a certain take on it, but should that come out at this stage, as the defense minister and the home minister put it, especially when authenticated version of whatever is being alleged by a magazine is not there in public domain? So now it's for the speaker to decide. But on China, when China has been doing salami slicing of Indian territory for decades and decades, the first time that you actually stand up to China and push them back in eastern Ladakh, there be a standoff situation, well, it remains to be seen, whether you've lost territory, whether you've ceded ground, or you've held your ground for once and stared the dragon down. So, the jury is out on it. Depends on how you'd like to look at it. Where was China in 1962? Where has China reached from 1960s till 1990s? And where is it that you're actually standing up to China? Whether it was in Doklam in 2017 or Galwan in 2020, and subsequently where the situation is right now. So, look, there are elements in the government who also want a white paper to come out so that the country knows the truth. But should that happen, it would weaken your negotiations with China per se. You want to score brownie points politically, or you want a stronger nation that can take on China united? This is a debate that is on.
Well, thank you for that perspective, Gaurav. Rajdeep, of course, is still with me on this story. Rajdeep, as Gaurav said, you want to score political points inside the country, or do you want a strong negotiating position with China? Is this something, this kind of debate in the parliament, is this something that can affect how India's position as far as the negotiating table is concerned? Rajdeep.
Anisha Bathor and Mr. Gaurav Sawant, General Naravane is not just any ordinary individual. He was the chief of army. And his book was, if Gaurav Sawant should answer, why is it that Penguin had put out advertisements about the book? I have them in front of me as I'm seeing it. It was obvious that the book was about to be published. So why was the book backtracked at the last moment? Whether national interest is being served or not has to be decided by the people of the country. Parliament is a sovereign place for the people of the country to be represented. Whether an unpublished book can be used as an authentication is a matter of Parliament rules. I am asking a simple question. A book which was already being marketed by Penguin was pulled back at the last moment. Does the country have the right to know what was there in the book or not? If the country doesn't have the right to know, that's fine. Please say that. If the country has no right to know, or the facts that General Naravane stating are false, the government should say that Mr. General Naravane's facts are false, and therefore we did not give it clearance. But a book would not have been put by Penguin in the public domain unless at some level initially it had been given clearance. Obviously, someone in government at the last moment changed their mind, which is what happened. Rahul Gandhi versus Rajnath Singh and Narendra Modi is another issue. I am raising the issue purely on the basis of the facts that are there before us. The pullout took place only at the last moment. What is it in the book that has so embarrassed the government that they are pulling out? And if it is embarrassing, should the country not know, rather than suggesting that this will strengthen China's position? China's position, or any position, is strengthened when the country is put through darkness and not through sunlight. Sunlight is the best disinfectant on every issue, including national security.
Oh, absolutely. But, on national security, Rajdeep, even I do not know what is there in that book, in the authenticated version. There are a lot of things that are doing the rounds in social media, in certain magazines. Whether it's authenticated or not, we do not know. We've had conversations with General Naravane. He was under the impression, we are told that the book will see the light of day, but then there is a procedure, and that procedure was not followed. Whether it's somebody in the government to blame, whether certain portions should have been, or did the publisher jump the gun and put things out in public domain without getting all mandatory clearance. We still do not know, and perhaps you're absolutely right. Floor of the house is where all facts will emerge. But for politics aside, it remains to be seen whether India has ceded territory on ground, because I have reported from Galwan, and India Today was the first channel that went all the way to Daulat Beg Oldie when the standoff was still on. When people were saying that Galwan has been cut off and the Chinese have moved forward, that was the kind of rumor mongering that was done by vested interests. India Today reported from Daulat Beg Oldie at the height of the Galwan standoff to send out that message that that territory remains in complete Indian control. So, the best disinfectant, as you rightly pointed out, is the truth, where we report from ground zero to get that truth, Rajdeep and Anisha.
Who has more credibility, your report or what the Chief of Army Staff has written in his book? Very simply, why should the Chief of Army Staff's book, the country should be told that the Chief of Army Staff has not told the truth.
We do not know. Maybe you know better, Rajdeep, because I still do not know an authenticated version of what he has written or what his impressions were at that point of time. What were the higher directions for war? So those are his impressions.
Should the country, Gaurav, not be told what is the reason why the Army Chief's book was not given clearance? Simple.
In a parliamentary democracy, those decisions are taken by the elected leaders of the country through the executive that leaders choose. So, whether it is the street that will decide, whether the street will decide.
Why is there no official statement as yet from the government as to why General Naravane's book was not allowed to be published? That's all I'm asking.
It is being discussed in Parliament. You are hearing from none other than the Defence Minister of the country and the Home Minister of the country. I think they've been elected by the people of this country to govern and not, certain leaks that may happen out of somewhere. And I still do not know. General Naravane has unimpeachable integrity. There are no two ways about it. But those are his impressions of a certain direction that he was given at that point of time. I've also spoken and interviewed the army commander of the army at that point of time, who's a gallantry award winner, who served very extensively in that battle zone and on camera for India Today. He's had a different take on what was happening.
No, but isn't it?
So,
I find
and
it
those are interviews on camera.
Gaurav, I find it faintly amusing that a general who you are admitting is of impeccable integrity,
absolutely,
his book suddenly becomes such a hot potato that it cannot be published even after the publisher has gone ahead with the promotional campaign. All I am saying is the government should say that the general who you say has impeccable integrity has actually compromised national interest, and in the national
interest,
they're not publishing the book.
That's your assumption, Rajdeep. That's your assumption. That's your assumption. That is your assumption.
No, what else?
In
the absence of any information,
is never a statement of fact.
If no data is available, if no data, no information, no press release is given, what am I to assume that a general of impeccable integrity, to use your words, his memoirs cannot be published? Across the world, generals publish their books. Across the world. It's not as if it's only in India. Across the world, some of the best military history is written by people who have actually served. So wherefore, what is it that General Naravane said that is embarrassing somebody, and therefore his book is not being published? And if it is, it should be said.
Did the publisher jump the gun? Did the publisher jump the gun and not follow standard operating procedures? Because even for a next general, rules will remain rules, unless you are arguing that because he's an ex-chief, rules should not be followed for him.
I am only asking.
There is a system that is in place.
Sir, I am only asking, government should tell us the reasons why General Naravane's book is not published. Simple, that's all.
Of course, and perhaps we shall hear that in Parliament, but to assume there is something in that would be embarrassing for the government or the country is an assumption. Maybe...
No, where is the assumption? A book, a memoir written by a general of the Indian Army is not being published, and there is no assumption. That is a fact.
It is a fact.
Is the book
Maybe
was
something is
stopped.
there in that book that may compromise your negotiations. Would you rather have a book, or would you have better negotiations with the adversary?
That's
And
all I'm
especially
saying.
when there
The
are very
government should
complex
say
negotiations that
the
are
book
on at
is
multiple
in-
stages.
All I'm saying is the government should say that the general of impeccable integrity, to use your words again, his book cannot be published because we believe it will compromise national interest. Period.
Well, let us see what the government says. It is for the government to say, what it is. But to assume, this...
Where is the assumption?
That
There
it
is
is
a
not
fact.
being... No,
The
you
book
said
has
so.
not been published.
Because you said so in as many words,
General of
Rajdeep.
Impeccable Integrity's book is not published. Instead, only those who will do, that means generals have been told you cannot publish any book that is inconvenient to those in power. What's the message?
That again is
That's
an
all.
assumption. That again is an assumption.
That may be an
Because
assumption. Fair
right,
enough.
right.
There
That
I
again
agree,
is
that
an
may be an
assumption,
assumption,
Rajdeep.
but
Because
in the
you also
absence
have
of
a
any
Henderson Brooks
statement-
report. You have a Henderson Brooks report that has still not been published. And why has it not
Yes.
been published? Because it is assumed in that book also, if it comes out in public domain, there are certain negotiations with China it may compromise. Though several generals have read it, several generals have referred to it. However, that book still remains.
All right, thank you very much.